If you want to ride, but fear is just holding you back, there's absolutely a way around it. You can reach whatever dream or goal you have and work to overcome that fear. It's not always a quick, instantaneous process, but it is absolutely possible if it's something you're committed to. And I promise you, when you can get to a point where you can move from this very fearful state into this state of freedom and wisdom, it is so incredible.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang.
Fear is one of the things that I think inhibits our life more than anything else. And it's not real tangible fears. It's a lot of the imagined fears. But I want to specifically talk about, because I've heard that this is a struggle for a lot of people, and it was definitely a struggle for me, the fear of riding and being able to ride your horse as safely as possible. When we talk about fear of riding, there is a real tangible fear there. Horses are by nature different beings from our own. They can be unpredictable and things can certainly happen. They can be dangerous, and they can especially be dangerous if they aren't handled and partnered with in the right way. And so a lot of us kind of felt like we were carefree as children, and riding came easy. And then we grew into adults and life changed for a lot of women. We became mothers. And suddenly this thing that we loved is something that is full of fear. And that's something that I certainly experienced. And I want to talk about some of the things I did that helped me overcome it, and some of the things that we can just change within the horse world so that it is safer, so that fear is not so justified, and also so that people can be okay approaching horses and managing situations in a way that feels good for them. So when I got my Mustang, I did not just enjoy looking at her. I most certainly, absolutely wanted to one day be riding her. That was my dream. And I got her after a long period without horses. I had had several children, and we had gotten a free horse for the kids to ride. And it was really a horse that my kids just rode around the corral for the most part. I think I took him out maybe 3 times and was still kind of in my 17-year-old mind, which is when I really stopped having a lot of time with horses and didn't really think much about it. And then he went to a different home, a great little retirement home, and the reality of having a horse and the dangers associated with it got real after I got my Mustang, because suddenly it wasn't a horse that was just going to do whatever I wanted her to. And I learned very quickly that I was going to have to approach things differently. But specifically, I had some pretty big setbacks when it came to riding her. And I also realized that all this time without horses, all this time having children, worrying about their safety and benefit and my own so that I would be able to take care of them, had created a lot of fear and anxiety in me. And the strategies that I had learned before weren't effective in helping me feel better. I was very aware that I was a woman with physical limitations, with a lot less strength than even a man would have, and certainly a lot less strength than my Mustang. And as a result, because of how I was taught to do it, how she was reacting to how I was taught to do it, and the reactions that we were getting, that fear and anxiety, which was already going on top of the fear and anxiety I felt from being a mother and just worrying about and wanting to protect and care for your children, it all built up to where writing was a very scary prospect. And I want to share with you a little bit of my timeline. And as I do, I'll just kind of talk about some of the things that I did. So I got my Mustang with 6 young kids, and we worked and worked and worked with her on the ground. We would just go out there in the afternoons, the kids would play around, and I would mess around with Sylvanie, trying to figure out what on earth I was doing and how to make this dream I had with this Mustang come about. And we would get really good in the corral, and going outside the corral was another thing, another challenge that we had, because it was just a completely different experience. This very calm horse was suddenly, and this very calm person, we were both suddenly very on edge. We worked through that, and we got to a point where we were ready to ride. I have never put a first ride on a horse before. I really had no idea what I was doing. I would not necessarily recommend this. I think it would be really good for anybody to have a mentor really walking them through it. And I had some here and there, but certainly I could have prepared better. And the ones I was working with, I really felt like we had prepared and we were ready. And I went to do the first ride. And a lot of times, I think we aren't actually even aware of our anxiety, and we don't really feel it until it starts to spike. And that's definitely what happened. I put my foot in the stirrup. It's something we'd practiced. I swung my leg over, and Sylvanie lost it. I say lost it. She was actually pretty calm compared to other rides I've seen, but she definitely jumped around, did some little bolts. And the second I got up there, I just wanted to be off. Here, it was like this dream. I wanted to ride this horse, and I did not want to be on top of her anymore. It was too much, too soon. We were not prepared enough. But I stayed up there. We walked around the corral. I didn't even have a round pen at the time, so I was just using the enclosure that they stayed in. We walked around. She had one more incident where it kind of got a little scary for me. And then, thank heavens, I got off. And the moment my foot touched the ground, she just bolted away from me. And, you know, it wasn't what I had envisioned. The people I'd been working with, I really believed that there was a way to do the first ride that was calm and low drama for everybody. That's what I was hoping for. That is not what happened. And it was pretty scary because I wasn't really prepared. It wasn't like I was riding horses every day. She was the only horse I had. Like, I didn't have a chance to get my saddle back underneath me to kind of feel comfortable on horses again before I did this. It sounds absolutely crazy as I talk about it, but everything was okay. And then I posted the video to this training group I was a part of and got a lot of feedback, and it was all good, great feedback. But honestly, it just defeated me. I felt like I had messed up, felt like she would never forgive me. I felt like I had gone too fast too soon, and I wasn't even aware of it. So I was just completely oblivious to all of this. And it knocked me down for a while, and I didn't try a second ride for a long time, like months. When I did the second ride, she was perfect, and we kind of did a good job and progressed from there. And this is just us riding in the corral. And I can't remember the exact timeline, but some point in between there, we got another horse. This horse was supposed to be a kid's horse, great for kids. I saw a video. I don't know that I was super impressed, but I had a friend who was saying, like, if you don't get this horse, I'm going to get it. And I thought, I don't want to pass this opportunity up. Part of my goal was to really be able to get out on the trails with my kids. You need 2 horses to do that. And so I decided to adopt this other horse, sight unseen. I had watched a video, seen people riding her. The lady was standing on her, which you think, oh, that must be great. But little tiny clips like that don't come anywhere close to telling the full story. So when she arrived. We paid to have her transported down. She arrived, and I just knew right away, like, I should not have done this. She was in horrible condition. She was skinny, her hooves were terrible, and as I began to work with her, it was pretty clear that she had very limited training. She had very stuck feet. She did not want to go anywhere. But the whole time in this mind, I'm thinking, she's a kid's horse. She's a kid's horse. And so I felt this urgency to kind of prepare her for summer. And also because I wasn't approaching her like I did with my Mustang, where with my Mustang, I'm very aware of her interactions with me, her communication with me. And this was just a domestic horse that was supposedly trained. And I kind of forgot everything that I was learning with my Mustang and just kind of said, we're going to go for it. So I worked with her. We worked in the corral. And then I finally decided we're gonna try the trails. And to be honest, I did a lot of things wrong. I used a bitless bridle that I didn't really know the mechanics of. I hadn't really practiced with her on. And the other problem that I really did was, like, I was determined this is what we were gonna do. So I wasn't really open to, like, okay, this isn't going our way. This probably isn't gonna be the right thing to do today. And I just decided I'm going to take her out on the trails. My husband it was early in the morning. My husband worked nights, so he was at work. My oldest was probably 12, and she, I kind of woke her up and told her, like, hey, I'm taking Secret out and I'm going to ride her. So I went out to the corral, got her out, got her ready, and we started to go away from the house. And boy, was I naive. The naivety is something that does make horseback riding dangerous. And there's a lot of it, and there are a lot of ideas out there that really promote just get on the horse, ride it out, do whatever you got to do, show her who's boss, rather than, like, this is a series of things you need to learn. You need to learn how to communicate with the horse. You need to be able to sense how the horse is feeling, be able to regulate, or at least know how you're feeling. And I would say these are all things I ignored. It was just like, this horse is a kid's horse. And she was, up to that point, very mellow. Like, her biggest issue was it was really hard to get her to move her feet. She didn't want to move her feet. Well, a horse that doesn't want to move, that is, there's an issue there, and that should certainly be addressed. But I just kind of ignored it because that's an easier problem to deal with than a horse taking off with you, a horse bucking with you, anything like that. So we turned to leave the area of our property, go out on the easement, and all I remember from that is her going into a buck and me thinking I'm going off. And I definitely did go off. The next vague memories I have are walking into the house and going to take a shower. And I walked into the house with blood all over me because I had hit my head, even though I was wearing a helmet. And so my poor oldest daughter, sees me walking in with a bloody head, calls her dad, and he calls the neighbor. He's at work. He's like, can you go over and kind of see if it's really this bad? I am in and out of having any memory of what's happening. I don't even know how conscious I am during all this, or how long I was out by the horse corral before I regained consciousness and came back in. Long story short, the neighbor takes me to the hospital. My husband meets me there. I need 18 staples in my head with wearing a helmet, have to stay the night in the hospital, get an MRI, all those things. All in all, not the worst that could happen to you on a horse, but not a great experience. I had rib contusions, which are tremendously painful, way worse than the head injury as far as pain goes. And so here I was with a kid's horse that could have probably killed me if I wasn't wearing a helmet, with the amount of damage that was done with the helmet. I have no idea what I did, how I hit my head, anything that went wrong, except that she started bucking and I went off. And so I get fixed up. Here, kind of my worst case scenario had happened. Like, I put myself in danger, and I now have this horse who's clearly not a dead broke, as we might call him, a horse, and a Mustang who's had a few rides on her. I think at this point I had probably done maybe 4 rides on my Mustang, maybe less, maybe only 2 or 3. And it was pretty heartbreaking. Like, how am I gonna do this again? Rode this quote unquote kid broke horse, believed what people told me about this horse, injured myself pretty badly, and I just took a break. I was off for quite a while after that, healing, recovering, and quite honestly trying to build enough confidence back to even try again. And, eventually I did. I'd start slow, and go out with the horses, stuff on the ground. But it was really a huge wake-up call that riding a horse is not just get on and do it. That is not the right way to ride a horse. If you want to ride a horse, you have got to learn, and you have got to realize that every horse is an individual. No matter how robotic they may seem, there is a soul and spirit in there. There are emotions and feelings happening in the body underneath you when you are on a horse. And so this was a pretty hard experience, but it was also so good to me because I realized, I had got to take a step back. I need to stop just going for it or just thinking I'm inadequate or I'm just being a scaredy cat, and I need to just try it. And I have to start learning really what it means and how to communicate and pay attention to the horse and their needs. It's really a regret I have, but also a lesson that I learned. My husband definitely did not want us to keep that horse for the kids after that. And so I actually had a trainer come in. I didn't even want to get on her again and kind of help tune her up, quote unquote, a little bit. And then she was actually sold to another trainer. And, the regret really being, I wish I could have had her when I knew more, when I knew to trust people and their advice less, and to trust the horse and what the horse was telling me more. So as you can imagine, after that, my confidence was pretty much shot. Just lack of confidence in myself, a real wake-up call at how dangerous horses can be and how things can change in just a split second. And the whole time with horses and getting my Mustang, it was really a process of me working through a lot of anxiety. And I kind of went back to square one. I need to step back and really go little by little. Start with the little things, not try to make these jumps that, clearly if you're having an accident on a horse, either you or the horse, or most likely both of you, were not ready for whatever was happening. And I needed to really take a step back. I needed to tune in to what I felt was right instead of following the advice that a lot of people would give. I think if it was even me having ridden, I might have stayed on. If it was a man with more strength, he probably could have pulled her out of the buck. So there are situations where people can be okay just jumping on and riding it out. That's not how I want to interact with my horse, and that's certainly not a risk that I'm willing to take anymore. And so there's a lot of lessons I learned about just fear and riding horses, and that sometimes we need to overcome it and sometimes we need to listen to that fear. And I would say most of the time, if you are having fear and anxiety, that is absolutely a signal that that's where you need to stop. You might have fear and anxiety, even though as far as your horse is incredibly safe. And that is still a point that's saying you need to step back a little bit and you need to start where you're comfortable, not just jump into this fear. Because, you could have this great horse and you jump on terrified. That horse is going to sense that. If it's a horse that has experienced it a lot, maybe totally fine, doesn't react to that. There are definitely horses out there like that. But if it is a horse that is sensitive to the interplay between him and you, that horse will sense that, and it's going to affect their reactions, very likely could create concern in them. It's going to change the experience versus if a really confident, well-versed rider were to get on that horse, it would be a different experience. We have to recognize that we are half of the experience when we ride a horse. We are half of the feedback that both beings are getting. We are one half of everything that happens. It's very, very popular in the horse world to blame the horse. Stupid horse, stubborn horse, bad horse, disrespectful horse, all these labels that we put on it. That's easy to do. It makes us feel better. It allows us to look away from ourselves and see the horse as a problem and not as ourselves. If you are having a problem with your horse, you are at least half the problem. And that's where I think the fear of riding really needs to start. You have to start with where you're feeling that fear. A rule that I really follow when I am moving into something new, something uncomfortable, is to find where you're still comfortable and then take a small step beyond that. A small step, not a huge, gigantic leap that you're not ready for. And so maybe you are fearful as soon as you mount the horse. My suggestion would be step back and look at exactly where that fear kicks in. Can you put your foot in the stirrup without having anxiety that something's going to happen? If you can't do that, you're going too far. Can you walk your horse around your property without fear that something's going to happen? There are absolutely times that I could not do that. We walk everywhere now. It's completely possible to overcome. There were times where just walking my horse around, I was just bracing for an explosion. And then they're probably looking at me thinking, you're terrified. So I also feel terrified. So that's where I had to start. So start where you can feel that discomfort come. And then get comfortable in that place. Get to where you feel really solid. If you're feeling anxiety, putting your foot in the stirrup, do that every day repetitively until you do that and you don't even give it a second thought. And then swing your leg up in the saddle while at the same time paying attention to the horse. Is the horse ready for you to swing your leg up in the saddle? My first ride on my Mustang, she clearly was not ready for me to swing my leg up in the saddle. I had sat on her off the fence. I had done some other things. I had not necessarily prepared well in that way. I think that's probably something that really set her off. That was a trigger of fear for both of us. And don't be afraid to start small. It's so true that if you can build a really good foundation, it's going to be so much better. And that's a foundation of personal confidence too, in understanding, like, I can read the horse. I am pretty confident. I know how to interpret their body language. I can tell when my horse is worried and I can overcome that. Aside from finding that area where discomfort starts and really working to make that a comfortable place, the other really important thing is ignore the advice to push too far too soon. There is a lot of advice like that. You never get off when your horse is upset. If you get thrown off, get right back on. These are just two of the things that, in my opinion, are absolutely horrible advice and are very likely to lead to accidents. It is okay to get off your horse. It's okay to get off your horse right after you got on your horse. It's okay to get off your horse 5 minutes down the road when you realize you're super nervous, or you can see that your horse is not comfortable in this experience. It's okay to get off your horse after you've been on it for 3 hours and suddenly you're on a narrow trail and they're dancing around. It is okay to get off your horse and walk for a while. There is a misnomer that if you get off your horse, they're going to take that as a reward and you'll never be able to ride them. Now, horses are smart. They can influence our behavior. Absolutely. They have a very good mind. If the same situation happens again and again, say you are going down the road, there's a rock, you hit it, your horse is scared. you get off and walk them the rest of the way. Then, yeah, if you do that every time for 20 times, that may become a learned behavior. But it is not going to become a learned behavior when it is not repeated so consistently with the exact same circumstances. I often get off my horse and walk them. I get off my horse and walk them when I have one of my kids with me to make sure that I can kind of watch everything that's going on. It is okay to get off your horse, and there has not been one time where I have gotten off my horse because a situation became a little precarious or I wanted to walk them past the barking dogs rather than ride them, that I was not then able to get back on my horse later. Most of the time, actually, I can't think of a time that this has happened any differently. I get off my horse and it immediately helps them to calm down. And we walk until however far I feel comfortable, and I will get back on my horse. I do think that an important piece of that is, yes, return to that comfort and then return to where you were, even if it's for 5 seconds. Get off your horse, find a place you're more comfortable with, get back on and ride for a little bit. That's for both of you to restore confidence, to keep progression going. And so it's absolutely okay to get off your horse. The second piece that I don't think is great advice is, if you ever get off your horse, get right back on. I do think you need to get back on. If you let something go too long, it can get really big in your head, a lot bigger and scarier than you think it is. If you're out on the trail and your horse bucks and you go off, you may not need to get back on the trail, but I would definitely say get home, go in the corral somewhere where you feel really safe and comfortable, and get back on the horse for your sake, for their sake, for you both recognize like everything's okay, we're still learning, we're still able to progress. I think the biggest problem with fear is that we don't know how to read our fear. We can't tell when our fear is irrational, and we can't tell when we should be listening to our intuition and it's kind of telling us something is off. But the good thing is, that's a skill we can get more comfortable with. There are a lot of things you can put in place to get to where you're comfortable. It's really important to note that it's not just your comfort that is important. It's also important that the horse is feeling comfortable and the horse is feeling like they are doing good. It's important for you to be able to read that and to see that in your horse. When I go out with my kids, we will often walk down our driveway first. And I always tell them, like, how is she feeling? How is he acting? Does it seem like he's comfortable? Does it seem like he's listening? That is a big clue to me. If my horse is listening, they're thinking about me. We're having a conversation. There are times when something catches their attention and they're gone. I can tell that they're not listening. There was a time that I was going to go out riding with a friend and my daughter, his kids, their horses on the trail. And the horse my daughter was riding was doing pretty good. Sylvanie was so worked up. She was not listening to anything. And I'm pretty sure that he did not think much of me, but I ended up walking her. We walked on this trail ride and she was worked up the whole time, but I could just tell she's not listening to me. I could probably have stayed on. We probably could have kept up. And, some other people could have ridden her and gotten her out of that anxious state. I think that's not a position I'm in my life. Again, I really don't want to get hurt. That is a high priority for me. And so it's important for me to do things in a way that I feel good about. That's another consideration. Someone else may be able to ride your horse. If when you try to ride, things are going bad, you might not. Whether that's you need to control your anxiety, whether you need to work on skills. A lot of times we think I should be able to do this when in fact we're really not ready to do it. And so we ignore that and we do it anyway, and then something bad happens. It is really important to be able to feel and overcome a little bit of fear. It is really important to be able to think rationally about what's happening. Am I really putting myself in danger? Some things I do, I always wear a helmet now. After that accident, for me, and I always make my kids, it's just not worth the risk. Even if my horses are solid, if we've been riding them often and things have been great, your brain's pretty important. And that was a very big reminder to me when that happened to me. I was wearing a helmet and I still got 18 staples in my head. The helmet was cracked. If that had been complete impact, it definitely could have been a lot worse. So there are things that we can do to ensure safety, but I do think absolutely the most important thing is to really learn how to read and communicate with your horse. That is a hard skill to learn. It's not one that's taught very much. A lot of times we don't listen to the horse until there's a big reaction, but there's so much communication that can go on before then. So to leave you with a few things to just keep in mind if you are someone who really has this desire to do something, even if it's something different from horses, but also have this fear and anxiety that you are dealing with. First of all, I have been there. It is absolutely possible to overcome. I can tell you that no matter how much you try, it does not guarantee the outcome. You can be a very skilled rider, very skilled communicator with your horse. Something can still happen. If you're going to ride a horse, I really do think you have to accept some inherent risk. Same as driving a car, right? Life is dangerous. And there is the possibility that something could not go right. It does happen. That's just reality. I think it's important to be clear on that. There may be some cowboy who's done all kinds of crazy stuff and nothing bad's ever happened, and that's who you're getting advice from. And the way he does things works for him. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work for you. You might read on some forum online that, this particular approach worked for everybody. If it doesn't feel good for you, if you can't get on your horse and feel like this is going to be a safe, good experience for both of us, you might need to take a step back, try and find some other strategies, maybe find some other mentors, see some different things you can do. I absolutely do think it is so beneficial to have a mentor or a friend, someone else who can also give you some good feedback. That doesn't mean take it willy-nilly 100%. That just means you have another set of eyes and experience, ears and emotions and feelings involved in this situation. They might see something that you miss. And I think it's important when you are looking for someone like that, that you find someone who aligns with the way you want to do things. If you are in a place where you can take more risk, you're young, you don't have kids, you've been on a horse a lot, that might be a totally different experience. You probably do want a different mentor than someone like me who was, out of riding horses for probably 10 years or more and had children, had more responsibilities, not really in a life space to take so much risk, but still with this really intense desire to ride horses again. And two really important pieces that I think will help anyone that I've talked about that I just want to finish with. Learn how to communicate with yourself. Learn how to listen to your fear and anxiety, how to recognize when something is a real legitimate fear and when it's something that you've just worked up in your head. Pay attention to those. Learn to recognize those differences. It's not easy. It really just takes practice and awareness and some internal focus on what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? Come to know yourself and what you're capable and where you have limitations, where you might need to go and learn more. And then the second thing is really come to learn your horse. If you're not sure how to do this, the best place to start is how does your horse react when you approach them? Are you paying attention? Do they come to you? Do they go to the farthest corner of the corral? Do they come to you and then leave? Do they come to you but see the bridle? That's where you start to communicate with your horse. Another one that's really common: what does your horse do when you reach up to touch their face? A lot of us absolutely ignore what our horse does. I definitely have in the past. Sometimes I still catch myself. A lot of times I'll reach up to touch one of my horses and they pull away. And so then I just put my hand out. And when I put my hand out and just change that small thing, changes their entire reaction. Now they'll come to me, they'll ask for attention and touch. And so come to know your horse. Don't wait until it's a buck or a bolt. Know when their body changes. I have a horse who is more on the anxious side. He's very malleable. He's very easy to guide, and he will listen to you as long as you can be that strong leader. But he can switch really fast to where it's like 1 minute he's fine, and then the next minute he's terrified. He'll even do this by getting himself independent without a rider. He will get himself into situations where he's fine 1 minute, and then all of a sudden he's kind of like, what situation did I just get myself into? So for him, his cues aren't as clear. You really have to pay attention to his ears, to the tension in his body. You need to be able to start feeling those things. That's why it can be so great to start so slow. To start in a corral, in a small enclosed space, in a round pen. I haven't always had round pens. I don't have one now. There are other ways to still create a safe environment. Start so very slow. Really pay attention. The more you can gather in those early times, the faster you'll learn and the faster you'll get to your goals. So if you want to ride, but fear is just holding you back, there's absolutely a way around it. And if you feel like you need more help or assistance, there are so many people willing to help. You can definitely contact me. We can have a conversation. I can offer some advice. But you can reach whatever it is, whatever dream or goal you have, and work to overcome that fear. It's not always a quick, instantaneous process, but it is absolutely possible if it's something you're committed to. And I promise you, when you can get to a point where you can move from this very fearful state into this state of freedom and wisdom, it is so incredible. I remember the first time I rode my Mustang out of the corral, it was hilarious. My daughter was there. I was like, videotape it. I was feeling good. I rode her out of the corral and I was absolutely a mess. I was shaking. I could just feel the tension in my body. And my sweet Mustang, she was just perfect. She walked over and ate some weeds, and that was literally my goal for the day. We're going to walk out of the corral. And that very little step helped me realize, like, I have a lot of tension I still need to resolve. And so it became a process of how am I going to address that and where are we going to go from here? And I think that's what it is. Small steps in the direction that you want to go. For fear, that's a huge guide. It's a huge way to move forward, but it's true for everything. Like, focus on those small, minuscule steps, do them very well, and it will help you progress down the line.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you.